Hi guys, welcome back for the podcast. Today we have some special guests. It's me, Gina, student intern. We have Chris
Howdy.
and we have Antell.
Hi.
So today we're gonna do a very interesting talk. Um, the day we're filming is actually Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. Happy birthday, MLK.
Happy birthday, MLK.
Happy birthday.
So today we're gonna start off the podcast in prayer like we always do. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Dear God, thank you for this day. Thank you for the wonderful gifts we've had. Thank you for the evolution of our country, and here's to a better future and a world that everybody is truly equal and protected. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and the hour of our death. Amen. Okay, so Antell, you want to do this talk?
Yeah.
So I know you're very passionate about this opinion. The way Planned Parenthood was designed, many believe it was designed to either help black women or target black women. What do you believe?
Well, I think the fact that most Planned Parenthoods are located in impoverished and black neighborhoods kind of speaks for itself. As we know, Planned Parenthood, the basis of their foundation is to kill babies. So the fact that they specifically target, black neighborhoods, low-income neighborhoods, just says that they really don't want black people around and that they have no care in the world for how the black population turns out. So I think that says it for itself, but if it's not clear, obviously Planned Parenthood was not founded to care about black people.
Okay. I think that's true. I think it's very aggressive, especially like when you look at the stats of who's actually getting the abortions. I feel like it's very heavy in minorities, which is shocking because like they're minorities. So it's like it doesn't make sense why it's like, what is it, 80%?
I don't know the exact statistic, but that sounds about right.
Yeah, I remember it's like high, like past 70s.
Yeah.
Of like black women are the ones getting the abortions. So that means so many black babies are sadly getting killed.
Absolutely. And, black people already have a lot of issues to face in the world today. So the fact that we're also focusing on killing black babies just says a lot about what we care about as a country and what Planned Parenthood cares about as a foundation and an institution.
Yeah.
So
I think it's also very interesting when you look at like, if you look at this on a wider spectrum of all minorities, it's always heavy minorities. Like I feel like the minority in abortion is white. And like I think it's an issue, and I think it's also interesting the way you think about like the people that have been the biggest supporters of abortion or the biggest racists in history. Like yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean, words say a lot. People that work at Planned Parenthood or that run the company can say that they care about minority issues. But the fact that the largest number of the abortions are being placed on minorities says a lot more than the words that they speak. Words like inclusion. It's not really inclusion if you're trying to kill the black population in America and keep it from developing and growing. So that's not inclusion in the slightest, in my opinion.
I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. I definitely think it goes to the point of eugenics. That's been a topic we've covered often, this idea that Planned Parenthood is the core of eugenics in America, and this is a perfect example of that.
Absolutely. I mean, eugenics not just focused on, the eugenics of babies, but especially the eugenics of minorities in the country, and the fact that it seems by their actions that they don't want any, further development or any more black people in there, because somehow that would, if they didn't have any black babies to kill, well, they wouldn't have a foundation anymore. Like you said, the minority of the babies that they abort are white. If they didn't have any minorities anymore, they wouldn't have company anymore. The foundation would be destroyed.
Yeah.
So.
And then it's also if like you pull out a map, like we're all from like you're from Philadelphia, you're from Delco, I'm from Chester County. Like if you pull up a map of all the Planned Parenthoods in our area, majority of them are in Philly.
Philadelphia, and Philadelphia is a majority black city.
Yeah.
I mean, if you walk down the street, most people that you're going to see are black. And I mean, there's a Planned Parenthood that's like 15-minute walk from my school that sometimes my Respect Life Club, we go and like peacefully protest outside and pray and have vigils outside, in honor of the babies that are being killed, especially the black babies that are being killed. And I think it says a lot that if you were to drive down the suburbs of Philadelphia, you more than likely wouldn't see as many Planned Parenthoods. And it also says a lot that there are not that many pregnancy resource centers in Philadelphia. There's actually one that I'm going to meet with her tomorrow, Magnolia House in right around Father Judge. But that's about the only pregnancy resource center that there is. There's like 2 more, but count how many Planned Parenthoods there are in Philadelphia. It severely outweighs how many pregnancy resource centers they have. Pregnancy resource centers are actually giving necessary resources to pregnant women, to women in need, to pregnant women. This is they're actually helping women versus Planned Parenthood that just says, well, you're pregnant, here, how about you get an abortion? Especially to black women, they say that all the time. So
and it's also like I work at a different pregnancy resource center, that another one that Mission Living Life supports, which is a Baby's Breath. And I think about the people I've met through this, like the clients that we have. I don't think there's a single white client I've met. I know we have maybe 1 or 2, but like we have almost all like either Hispanic or black clients, and I don't see an issue with that at all, but I see an issue with the fact that like they were being pushed for abortion by everybody else in their life. And I feel like that alone's an issue within those communities. I think the one thing when you look at Philly in this area was it was always looked at as such a special area because of how diverse it was. Like even in the beginning of America, like Philly had more diversity than other areas because like Philly was like freedom for slaves. Like a lot of them came up here, and then like that was like when like a lot of like people doing Underground Railroad would even be like, yeah, I'm free now. And like I think it then like immigration times, like we have Little Italy, which isn't at all a minority, but like it became such a place for like cultural development.
Yeah, Chinatown.
Yeah, Chinatown. I forgot that name. But like it's like really beautiful if you think about it. And
there's a lot of culture and diversity in Philadelphia that I think a lot of people tend to overlook. But, Philadelphia is really, we call America the melting pot of the world, but I think Philadelphia is a perfect example of that because you can walk down, meet people of completely different races, cultures, ethnicities, origins, et cetera, et cetera. So, you're never going to meet the same person again. You're always going to meet people from totally different backgrounds, totally different, socioeconomic statuses. And I think that's what's so interesting about Philly, and I think that Philly always tends to have a negative light shone on it, but I think that there is a lot of beauty in Philadelphia, and I'm very proud to be from there, and I'm proud to live there. So, not proud of what Philadelphia has done in terms of abortion and how we keep trying to kill black babies, but in other ways, I'm very proud of Philadelphia and how we've evolved. So,
yeah, I agree. I think the best thing for Philly is to get rid of Planned Parenthood.
Absolutely. I think that's the best thing for America.
That's the best thing for America, but if we're going to do one city at a time.
If we're just going to do one city, we'll just do Philadelphia for right now. But, yeah, I don't know. I just think that I really would wonder how much better the country would look if we didn't have organizations like Planned Parenthood anymore and solely focused on funding. If we used what's the taxpayer money, like $600 million, $800 million that the government gives to Planned Parenthood, if we actually funded that into pregnancy resource centers, how many babies would be saved, how many mothers would be saved.
And how much better our community would look.
Absolutely. If we came together and said, abortion is not right, but, we also have to understand that, not every pregnant woman has the same resources. But just because you don't have the resources to have the baby does not mean that you have to automatically go and abort it. And I feel like that's a lot, our culture, especially us all being teenagers, that's a lot of what our culture is telling us. If you get pregnant, go and abort it. But in reality, no. If we put the same emphasis and effort that we put into Planned Parenthood, into pregnancy resource centers, and showed the world and showed the country that there are other options, I feel like we would be a much safer, we would be much healthier, much happier society. And I think that's what's most important right now.
And I think if you also look at like the issues in Philly and like the way people depict like minorities in Philly, like I know everybody has the idea of like, oh, that single black mom and that stuff in like Philly. Like I know kids who've like struggled with that because like their moms are a single black mom. I had this one friend, like their mom was in and out of like rehabs and that stuff, and she like got an abortion for one of her kids, and like that really destroyed the family even more than not having the abortion. And like I think if we think of what's better for cities, what's better for these areas that like have Planned Parenthoods, it's not to kill the babies, it's to heal the community.
Absolutely. I totally agree.
Well, yeah, but there's no profit to be made in that.
That's true.
That is very true.
There's no hard money in that.
That's very true, but I mean, I think our country and our society is kind of focused solely on money rather than helping people, and I think in a lot of ways that this emphasis, extreme emphasis on money and solely profiting on everything has kind of diminished our value of human life, and that's the reason that we don't protect the dignity and sanctity of life anymore because we're only focused on money. I mean, Planned Parenthood, like I said, what, $600 to $800 million from the federal government, taxpayer money, that my money, well, I don't pay taxes, but my parents' money is going to abortions. I don't think that's okay.
And then if you also look at the fact that like Philly is like they have underfunded schools, they have underfunded like social things, like welfare system needs more money. Like there's a lot of things in Philly that money could be going to get people out of poverty. So like if you think about all the support that we're giving Planned Parenthood, we can be funding that money back into the systems that actually need funding, and that helps people get jobs. That helps people develop, and that will, end of the day, make more money for the city. Because if more people are working, if there's more jobs and more opportunity in the city, then the city becomes wealthier.
Yeah, I don't understand the thought process that. I really don't understand the economic idea that abortion is good. Even if we strip it down to its most evil, it's solely for money. There are a lot of other things that are very valuable if more people are there. You would think more people equals more money.
Exactly.
Absolutely, and I mean, again, I live in Philadelphia, so I see how underfunded the public education system is in Philadelphia. I mean, I'm blessed and privileged to go to a private school where, you know, the education is really good, and I'm given many opportunities, but I know that not everybody in my area has the same opportunities. I mean, my father's a lawyer, and he does a lot of pro bono work for, you know, impoverished people because not everyone can afford a lawyer, and, you know, he mainly works in family law, and a lot of his cases are just, you know, heartbreaking with how poor these people are. So, you know, automatically either the woman wants to get an abortion, and if she has a child, the child is not brought up in a good system where they automatically turn to gun violence. I think that's also something that's really important. I mean, how easy it is to access guns and stuff like that. That's so incredibly dangerous. But I just think that if we spent that money and that we're giving to abortion facilities and stuff like that, we would kind of protect more lives. And I think that's really what we should be focusing on as a society, rather than say, hey, if you're pregnant, go get an abortion. I mean, what's the big deal? I mean, that's a huge deal. I mean, has no one ever considered this mental impact that has on a mother? I mean, going out to abort a baby, I mean, knowing you've carried that baby for however long, however many months, you're never gonna see that baby's face, you're never gonna hold their hand, you're never gonna see their first steps, never gonna see them go off to kindergarten, go off to high school, go off to college, you're never gonna walk them down the aisle. And another thing is, do we ever factor dads into that?
Exactly.
I mean, it's always, you know, like my math teacher said, which kind of made me, you know, pro-life, was it takes two to tango. And it's right. I mean, the father has every much of a right to have his say in whether abortion is committed or not, because what if that father wants to walk his little girl down the aisle and he's never going to be able to do that? I mean, how fair is that to the father? I mean, I think that both parents need to take responsibility in this situation and understand that, you know, we might not be in a relationship if it's an extramarital affair, or we might not have the means, even if they are together, we might not have the means to raise this baby, but abortion isn't the answer, you know? I think I'm in no way, shape, or form saying that the adoption system is perfect. It has many flaws, but I know so many people that have been adopted. I mean, my best friend was adopted. Her mother was going to have an abortion, but, you know, she got changed from God. I mean, she got the blessing from God, the strength to say, I'm going to keep this baby and I'm going to put her up for adoption, and she has the most beautiful life. And that's my best friend, and I could not imagine my life without her, and I could not imagine if her mother hadn't, you know, gotten her words from God that told her not to have an abortion. I couldn't imagine if she had an abortion and I never got to have my best friend. So
Exactly.
The adoption thought process there being so screwed up. We talked about this in part one of our pro-life
Yeah.
versus pro-choice, which you, the viewers, should watch at home. Shameless plug.
yeah.
You don't, just because the system is so broken, it doesn't mean you should kill the patients in this. You don't kill the patients at a hospital because a doctor is not doing his job correctly. You get a new doctor or you fix the hospital as a whole.
Absolutely not. And I mean, we talk so much, pro-choicers talk so much about, oh, the adoption system is flawed. It's not perfect. There's so much wrong with it. Okay, well, did you ever think that maybe if we took the money away from tax-funded abortion, that maybe we could use that money to actually make the adoption system better, and make the foster system better? I mean, there's so much wrong with it, but I think if they had much more funding, if they had the 600 to 800 million that Planned Parenthood is getting every year, it could be a really different world, and it could be a lot less abuse in the foster system.
Exactly. And it's also, if you look at like the aftermath of people going through abortions, like girls that get abortions are more likely to have mental health issues. And also like there's such an acceptance on like having an abortion. Like, yeah, do it, go ahead. Like, your body, your choice, go get that abortion. Like, that should empower you. But then these girls feel guilt and shame and like trauma. Like, they have trauma after abortions. And like a lot of them don't get help because they're so ashamed of what they did. They don't get help, they don't seek help. And there is ways they should be able to heal, but they don't allow themselves to heal. And I think that's heavy on the pro-choice side of like, oh, well, this is empowering. Like, you can't speak your truth if you're against abortion. And then it's like, how do they cope with that then? Like, a lot of people cope with that through like alcoholism or drugs or like other mental health issues.
Exactly. And I think that, we're just telling people that life is worthless, and there's a lot in life that if you make the wrong decision, you can fix it. You can, if you get a bad grade on a test, you can always bring your grade up if you put in the time and effort, but you can't ever change an abortion. You can never wish it back. You can never say, oh, I made the wrong decision. Oh, let's bring that baby back. Once it's done, it's done. That's
Yeah.
it.
But there's
It's-
ways you can heal.
Absolutely. No, I'm just saying that like once you make that decision, that is done. That baby is gone. So I just think that it's just terrible that so many women feel like they have to do it, and that it's empowering somehow to kill their baby, and that somehow, especially women, that they're going to somehow, that they can't be in the workforce. They can't have a life. They can't have a career outside of being a mother. Being a mother is a tremendous thing. I love my mom to death, and I think she's
Yeah.
one of the strongest women that I've ever met. She's a lawyer as well. She had me. She can do both, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that in the slightest. And I don't think it's in any sort of way, terrible to say that you can have a baby and be in the workforce. No, you can do both. It's totally okay.
And I think that's true female empowerment right there.
Absolutely.
It's like my mom, she didn't finish college. Like, she got married, had kids really young, and she wasn't able to do college. But then like I'm about to go off to college next year, and my sister just graduated from college and she's about to go back for another degree. Like, my mom and my brother just got married and he's doing very good in his job. Like, my mom may have struggled, and she was a single mom for a while, and she did grow up in like a not a wealthy area, and she didn't like have a lot of money for her kids when she was younger, and like when me and my siblings were younger. But she worked so hard, and she showed us like it takes hard work to get what you want in life, but like you can do it. And kids were never an issue for my mom. Like, my mom was able to be a single mom and raise kids, and my mom was able to raise 3 kids and have stepkids and adopt a kid. Like, I think moms being able to work and raise their kids, I think that's true female empowerment, and that's honestly teaching your kids that you don't have to give up.
Absolutely. And I mean, my grandmother that I never got to meet, but my dad's mom, she was unfortunately raped, and that the product of that was my dad. But everyone in her life told her to get an abortion. That baby is worthless. You got raped. Go abort the baby. She was extremely poor. She didn't get past the 6th grade, so she was not educated. Her mother was illiterate. They came from they lived on a reservation in North Carolina. And my great-grandfather was abusive as well to his wife, my great-grandmother, and his daughter, my grandmother. And my great-grandmother, she had 8 other children as well. And my grandmother decided to flee with her whole family to Buffalo, where she got into an abusive relationship with my grandfather. He raped her. And like I said, everyone told her to have an abortion, but she was like, no, I can't do it. She was a Christian woman. She went to church every Saturday. She wasn't Catholic, but she was Christian, and she was adamant about her belief. She was strong in her faith, and she knew that abortion would be the absolute wrong thing to do. And she decided, I'm a single mother, but because my grandmother was illiterate, she couldn't work, so my grandmother had to work for her 8 younger siblings and support them all by herself with no help from anyone else. But she had my father, and my father, he was a 6-sport athlete. He got a full ride to every single Ivy League, he had a 4.0 GPA. He went to UConn, then he went to Penn for his law degree, then he went to London School of Economics for his LLM. And then he went to Sorbonne in Paris to something else, I don't know, some other education. And now he has me. And, that I never would have been given the opportunities. I wouldn't even be around if my grandmother had listened to societal pressure and said, have that abortion. I wouldn't know my dad. And my dad is not a perfect person. He's had a lot of issues in his life. He has issues now. But I love him, and I'm so proud of everything that he's gone through. And I just couldn't imagine my life without my parents, and especially without my dad. I could never imagine if my grandmother had that abortion and decided not to have my dad. I wouldn't have a life. So I'm, a direct impact of the pro-life movement and the Christian and Catholic belief that abortion is wrong.
Yeah.
That's a great example. I think what a lot of people struggle with when it comes to faith is this problem of evil, and I think your father and you are perfect examples of the beauty and goodness that can come out even of the worst situations. Now, Gina, I do have a question that I want to throw to you guys, but do you have a thought before I move on to this question?
I think it's obviously really impressive, because I think we talk so much about, bettering the systems, or, all babies have value. But, that's, right there the best example. Your grandmother was raped, and everybody said, that's a worthless baby. That baby has no, impact or future anyway. And then look what your dad turned out to be. Yeah, he struggled, but he worked so hard, and he got so many amazing things out of it.
Absolutely.
And then look where you're at. And, everybody says, the next generation, if you do good, the next generation's going to do better.
Absolutely.
And I honestly could see you doing better.
Absolutely.
And, you're going to do great things. And,
Yeah.
then your kids are going to have that opportunity, too.
Absolutely. And I mean,
it's amazing.
My dad, once he started, when he became a lawyer in Philadelphia after he moved here after Penn, he got my grandmother an apartment. She never lived in a nice apartment before, but he bought her a nice apartment because he knew that everything he got in life, every opportunity, was because his mother kept him alive, and because his mother furthered his education. Was like, I only got a 6th grade education. I don't know how to read at high school level. I don't know these words that you're saying, because my dad is extremely intelligent. So he was using words around my grandmother that she's like, never even heard of that. I mean, my favorite thing is when my dad got accepted to Columbia in New York. He was out in Paris, and my grandmother called him on the phone. She's like, Curley, you just got into Columbia, because she didn't know how to say Columbia, because she'd never heard the school before, because she wasn't aware what the Ivy League system was. So, but that's just an example of, my grandmother came from a terrible environment. She came from pure poverty, but she decided to have my dad, and my dad was, decided to work hard and bring his family out of poverty, and that's why I have the opportunities that I have.
Yeah.
So I'm really grateful, but I do want to hear Chris's question now.
Yeah.
Very interested.
So this is going back to a little more of the effects that have been placed on Black people. Now, very generally, a common critique I think a lot of people give to America at the moment is our moral decay. And I'm wondering what your guys' thoughts on my theory that we see this effect, this moral decay, most substantial in the black community, whether it's voluntary or involuntary effect. And if you're wondering, while I let you guys think, the reason I was thinking that is because obviously we have these discussions all the time on abortion, but I've read 2 books within the last couple of years. One is The Other Westmore. Highly recommend anyone to read it.
Yeah, everyone go read.
It's a great
Go
book.
read. We
Go
need,
read.
As a generation, we need to
Yeah.
read more.
Reading
as well.
is
Open
great.
books.
Yeah,
Yeah.
get off TikTok. I mean, thank God TikTok's back.
Get off TikTok in 90
please,
days.
Yeah, but please go read as
Yeah.
well.
But follow us on TikTok.
Yeah,
Follow us on
on
TikTok.
and YouTube
And all
and
other
Instagram
social
and-
medias.
Yeah, just go follow us everywhere.
Yeah.
And go listen every week or whenever podcasts
Yeah.
come out.
Yeah. But I read that, and then I just finished for my literature class Just Mercy. And a lot of the stories in those 2 books is effects on black people, and obviously our discussions on abortion. So I'm wondering your thought on my proposition that moral decay is most commonly shown, those effects, on our black community.
Well, when we automatically tell black people that, have an abortion, we're pretty much saying, well, black lives don't matter. I know Black Lives Matter is a big thing in the pro-choice movement, Everyone believes Black Lives Matter, and Black lives do matter, absolutely. But when you're telling black mothers, your baby, you can just abort your baby. You're saying your baby's worthless. Your baby has no dignity. Your baby has no sanctity. Your baby has no value in life. There's nothing important about your baby. Even if they do end up keeping the babies, they still have the thought in the back of the mind that, black lives are kind of worthless in this country, and who cares about us? And, you can see in Philadelphia, all the violence that happens and stuff like that, that's purely an effect because we're telling people, the pro-choice movement is telling people, especially black people and other minorities, that your lives don't matter. Your lives have no value to us. You're disposable. It's what it is. It's disposable. We can throw you out. Come in, and however long the abortion takes. How long does an abortion take?
Depends which kind of abortion, I feel like.
Okay. Well, roundabout.
Like an hour.
An hour?
Or so?
Yeah. After an hour, okay. Okay, good. You can go home now. So, whatever. What? No, of course this is going to have negative impacts on the black community and the black society if we're telling them from the moment they get pregnant that you can kill your baby has no value in any sort of way. And I don't even want to talk about the chemical abortion pill and everything that's wrong with it, but if you just look that you can just buy that at something like a drugstore, at a
so easy.
CVS,
Yeah.
and the fact that you don't need any kind of, pre or post doctor's checkup or anything like that.
It's dangerous.
It's just insanity. Even if somehow our talks don't change your mind about being pro-choice and you're like, I still want to be pro-choice, at the very least, can we please all understand that the chemical abortion pill is so incredibly dangerous? It's crazy. Like I said, even if you're like, I want to stay pro-choice, I don't believe anything you guys say, I don't care about whatever you say, at least understand the negative impacts that chemical abortion pills have.
Awful.
And if you're someone that cares about the environment a lot, which I do,
It
look
destroys
at
all
it
plants.
destroys the ecosystems and the water and stuff like that. So you can look at it from that perspective too, if you don't want to get into the, moral and life issue of the chemical abortion pill. But it's terrible for the environment as well.
EPC expert Antell joining us live.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think another thing about that, it's like, I take an African American history class.
Ooh,
I actually like this class. It's so interesting.
Yeah.
But I think it also starts with such a rooted history in racism towards black people and racism towards people in general. But if you look at American history, every different race experienced slavery slightly different.
Mm-hmm.
So black people got the worst form of slavery, in my opinion. I feel like if you look at the way they got treated, it was disgusting and it's shaming and appalling. But I think if you look at how they treated Native Americans, Native Americans had black slaves, and that's just kind of disgusting too. And just people owning people is disgusting. If you look at it from Native Americans, Irish people, indentured servants, black people, Asians even, it's just appalling owning another person. But then also telling them that they're less than, that they're not as worthy as someone else over something you cannot control. And I think it's gotten that idea kind of went away in society, but I think that those people that still thought that try to mask it with a different term. Like telling, like tricking black people, not tricking, but coercing.
Coercing.
Coercing?
That, like telling them like it's okay if like, you know, like you can't be a mom. Like you really think your baby's gonna have a good life? And like they may say all this stuff like, oh, poverty, oh, the ghetto, oh, like urban community, stuff like that. When in reality, it's just targeting the fact that they're black. Like Planned Parenthoods are in only black neighborhoods in Pennsylvania, I feel like. Like even if you go to the ones in Delco, it's the black side of Delco.
Absolutely.
And like if you go into the parts of Philly, there's not a Planned Parenthood in Little Italy. There's not a Planned Parenthood in Chinatown. It's where it's only in the black communities.
Yeah.
Like Norristown, it's the black side of Norristown.
Absolutely.
And it's appalling because I'm like, they really want black people gone. And I think the decay of our morals, I don't think it's only a black issue. I think it's an everybody issue. I think anything that's considered a black issue is a society issue.
Yeah.
Like we can't segregate issues.
Absolutely.
Like I say that when people say, "Oh, this is a women's issue." Like no, it's
a
an
human
everybody.
issue.
It's a human issue.
A human issue. And
Like black people impact everybody.
absolutely.
Like this is something that impacts the entire nation, not just a minority.
Do you
Yeah.
think that thought is, you gave a good example, women's issue, is that we kind of quote unquote segregate it because of who it affects most commonly? Or do you think it's just like a attempt to masquerade
I
the
think it's a
issue?
way to mask and isolate people. I think telling black people this is a black issue, that also means black people aren't going to rely on white people. Like, so if there's a white person wanting to support a black person, but this is a black issue, they're going to kind of like stay quiet about it and like not go to that person. Or if this is like a Latino issue, like they're not going to go to black people for support. They're not going to find other ways to get help, because if this is a black issue, then why am I going to bother a different race about it? Or if this is a women's issue, why am I going to go cry to a man about it? Like, it's a way to isolate.
Absolutely. And I'm really interested about your African American class. I want to take AP. I'm taking AP African American next year, so I'm really excited. So you have to tell me what
Is
books
that
you
actually a course offered?
read. Yeah,
Yeah.
school. Yeah, we just got it actually. We had regular African American studies, but then we made it into AP African American. So I'm
Mine's
really
currently
excited.
honors class, but then next semester
It's okay. I'm smarter than you. It's
Yeah,
whatever.
okay. But then next semester, it's going to be court cases.
Oh, that's cool.
And so we're
Yeah.
going to kind of like piggyback off of that.
Yeah.
And now we're going to go deep dive into all minorities, not just African Americans. But I
Yeah.
think we're going to still like focus
Yeah.
on like African American
And I'm glad
cases.
you brought up the Native American issue too. I'm part Native American, so that's also
Yeah.
a really big part of my heritage and my identity. And I think the way that Native Americans have been treated in the country for centuries is absolutely
Disgusting.
atrocious. And the way they're still treated, I mean, let's look. Did you know out of every single race, Native American women are the most likely to be raped and then forced to get an abortion out of any single race in the country?
And then
I think
there's-
it's
And then there's abortions they sterilize.
absolutely. And let's be honest, how many times do we hear about Native Americans on the media?
Like,
Not
never.
really. Do you ever open the news and hear the headline be something about Native Americans
And
or
it's
the
crazy.
injustices
Only when
they
they're
feel?
talking about, only when it's like a politician saying how terrible we were 200
Yeah.
years ago. But we're fine now.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Which
Everything is solved.
no.
Or like when you open
not
up
in the
like
slightest.
true crime, I listen to true crime all the time. I find it so interesting. But like all of the cold cases I listen to, it's like this a Native American person missing, and it's always Native American women or girls, like
Absolutely.
younger than 16 girls.
Absolutely.
And they're always missing, never get media attention. They're always raped and killed, never get media attention. They get signed off as prostitutes gone wrong or some crazy stuff like that. And it's just sickening because, one, it's people just ignoring societal issues. It's people just ignoring the dignity of other people. And it's like there has to be a better way we can solve it that's not just killing off a race, because that's what this is becoming. It's a genocide, killing off races.
Absolutely.
It's very
I mean,
interesting.
Can I
I'm
just
sorry, I'll let you.
Can I just point out this? Like this isn't a theory. This isn't like, oh maybe. Well, you could see parallels here and there. This is the abortion industry. The question of race is a direct parallel, not even a parallel, but like a direct descendant of Nazi fascism. in Germany.
Yeah, John, they used
Like,
Hitler's
that's-
eugenics came straight from American
straight
eugenics.
Straight off the boat. And let's
The pill
point
was
something
also
out
used in
here.
concentration camps.
Exactly.
You had, like, essentially when Americans landed in Normandy, the war was over. We had, like, yeah, there were some reasons here and there, and then we got bombed Pearl Harbor a year later. We really, as a country, we didn't have a huge opportunity or really reason to get into the war. Like, yeah, we saw the whole messed up situation. there are a ton of debates on it, but regardless, when when we landed in Normandy, the war was over, and we landed for a reason, which was like the whole Nazi extortion and massacre of the Jews.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest reasons we were there. We were like, this is wrong, and we are here to stop it.
And it's, I think, a good example.
And then 50 years go by, 1970 is the sexual revolution.
Sexual revolution.
What happened in those years?
It's like 30 years later.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I think
actually only
It's
like
actually
30
years
All
later. It's
they
30
had to
years
do-
later, but
All
nonetheless.
they had to do was turn the noise of society up. That's literally all they had to do. Because radio came around, television came around, mass media came around, newspapers.
That's very impressive, John. You're
That's
connecting all
just
these
boom,
things.
you're
I
gone.
think
But
the
I
one
think-
thing
You're gone.
about like the whole like Nazi fascism mentality, I think if we're looking at the American issue of it, I don't think this directly came because of Nazis. I think because Margaret Sanger was around in the 1920s. Like Planned Parenthood was founded in 1918.
Yeah.
So like, and that was to cure poverty. That like that pill that Margaret Sanger invented was something Hitler took the idea from
Yeah.
and decided to like basically lace the food in concentration camps, making Jewish women infertile to a point that Jewish women in Europe and anybody that was direct descended from someone that survived a concentration camp, a lot of them still struggle with fertility. The Jewish population will probably never be to that point again
No,
because
never.
of that.
No,
And
I
I
mean-
think also like so many women after surviving concentration camps suffered infertility and they suffered miscarriages and they just weren't able to have kids, or like their kids suffered so much stuff in their reproductive health as well. And like it's also, if you look at the Planned Parenthood birth control study they did to just see if it would kill the girls or not, they gave it to strictly Puerto Rican women. And a lot of those women died or became infertile, and they didn't actually have the like full consent on it. They didn't know what type of pill they were taking. And it came to a point that like that pill just kind of got like a little bit less of a dose, and like that's the pill we take today, and that's a pill targeted to women and minorities and just girls in general. But like
I think I put a little theology twang on it since we're going all over the spectrum of topics. I think if there's a gospel that most directly hits America, modern day America, is the gospel of calling out your brother with a splinter in his eye while you have the log in your own, yet you don't notice it. And we see this in modern America. We call out the Nazis and fascism, yet they took their eugenics straight from us. We call out the treatment of Native Americans and Black Americans in the 19th century, yet here we are now. We're literally having a topic of discussion on the moral decaying and the effects it's having on Black Americans. We're seeing this over and over again, that we're calling these situations out as terrible, and they are, but we're not noticing all the screwed up stuff in our modern times.
I think in order to heal, we have to understand why that is what it is. Like I think, like my dad and where he grew up is such an amazing example of it, because he grew up in like a farmer's town in Topeka, Kansas. Like my dad's high school is Brown versus Board of Education school district.
Seriously?
My dad went to that school like 10, 15 years after
Wow.
Linda Brown's case.
Jeez.
Like
Wow.
Does he have an accent?
no.
He does not. I heard
my
today
mom
he
got
does
the
not have an
Shame.
accent.
Yeah, no. But like my cousins go to that school. Like my aunt had biracial kids in that time period. Like Like my family grew up around this kind of like idea, and I think it's interesting because like now you look at it, like there's an evolution coming, but I think a lot of people just kind of like closeted their racism because now it's no longer socially acceptable. I think we closeted the issues, we kind of locked it up, or we put some paint over it, but we never actually like talked about it.
Kicked it under the carpet.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like we kind of were like, okay, yeah, no, it's illegal now, so it's okay. So it's okay. No, peace, safety,
Everything
good.
is fine.
Like
We
exactly.
are perfect.
And I think so now if we want to look at modern times, I think we have to understand that like this has been built up, and that it's like we just kind of put a band-aid over a bullet hole, and like we just expected us to stop bleeding. Like this is to a point that like now we're gonna take off that band-aid, and there's gonna be like a flood of blood coming out. Like it's a whole idea.
Great analogy.
Thank
That
you.
is a really good analogy.
Thank you guys. I was thinking of Morgan Wallen.
Yeah.
And
You
I
were
will-
thinking of a Morgan Wallen example?
Morgan Wallen song.
John,
And I will just point out, one of the biggest issues in America behind all this is, like, the basis for our government is the so-called self-evident truths that all men are created equal. We never, and our
we for some
system of-
reason can't get that down yet.
Yeah, right. Like our bylaws, everything we know in most of the American legal system is how can we be treated as equal?
Mhm.
But we never really described that equality. Equal on what terms?
I think
Like
that's the
equal-
issue there. It's
equal
what's the
for-
terms.
Equal just to be equal? Equal why? Because we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights. Well, you take God out of the equation. You take that building block literally built into our Constitution. Oh, we don't need that anymore.
Way to add theology
It's like-
to it. I love that.
Yeah.
Oh,
I-
okay. So we don't need God, therefore we don't need his divinely inspired, his divine command, like the whole golden rule thing. Oh, that's out the window. Oh, okay. But we're still equal, and no one in America can tell you why.
Yeah, no,
I-
you bring up a great point. I'm sorry, I
No, you got it.
interrupted.
It's like no wonder the Nazis took from us.
Yeah,
I'm very confused what we mean by.
I think
I'm
when
a
like
little confused.
you say like the terms, I think if you think about like, okay, when that stuff was written legally, what was the societal like viewpoint at the time? Like everything, when you read over constitutions, when you read over laws and amendments and bills and any type of writing that's over 100 years old, you have to put yourself in that mindset of that time. So at that time, it said all men were created equal.
Well-
So there goes black people, there goes anybody of a different race, there goes anybody that, any female, like that goes out a lot
Different
of people.
religions,
Exactly.
et cetera.
Like it came into an ideology of, okay, all men are created equal. So then you start putting in your head a picture of Uncle Sam. Like this is when, like, yeah, we fixed a law or two. Yeah, we have the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. I really hope my African American teacher is
no,
watching
you're
this.
right.
Yeah.
Good job.
No, I
Very
hope
good.
he knows.
You're going.
Please give me extra credit.
You're doing
But like,
well.
if you look at that stuff, it's like, okay, yeah, now we have this. But okay, we still have black codes. We still have Jim Crow laws. We still have Dred Scott case, Plessy versus Ferguson. We still have all those cases. Then if you look at the 18th Amendment, yeah, the right
Which
to
one
vote.
are you looking for?
Females' right to vote.
I think it's
That's
19.
19th. You
Oh
look at the
my God.
19th Amendment.
I cannot
18th
believe
Amendment got killed anyway because that was prohibition.
Yeah.
I get them mixed up, guys.
It's all right.
Yeah.
I'm
not
It
that far.
happens to everyone.
It happens to the best
Happens
of
to
us.
the best of
Happens
us.
to the best.
So like anyhow, you look at that stuff. It's like, okay, we had that law, but then at the same time, like women couldn't own property, and like women, they had taxes differently. They had inheritance clauses. Like there was rules. Like that's the thing. Yeah, it's the terms, but then it has to evolve with society. But society doesn't always let it evolve.
Exactly.
You're bringing
And
up I'm sorry, Antell. I'll let you go.
Yeah, and I mean, I just want to make sure Thomas Jefferson wrote the Constitution. Right?
Yeah,
Thomas
he
Jefferson.
did.
How many slaves did he have again? Like, let's just
He
say,
had
slave
let's-
children
kids.
also.
He
How
had
many?
black
How many?
kids.
He slept. He had a mistress with his slave
He
and
had
a bunch of
19
children.
kids.
Let's
Yeah,
not
I mean,
forget
let's-
most of the founding fathers were slave-owning Freemasons.
That's true.
Most,
We-
But
almost
there's a
everyone.
reason the Masonic Hall is like right next to Independence Hall.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
And
almost,
just walk
almost.
straight out of Congress and like.
I
go
mean,
and-
almost anyone back then that had any type
Yeah.
of money had slaves.
And there was
so-
like the deleted article of that said that was gonna free black
Yeah,
people.
that was a
That was, but like
Shut
they
down.
had that. But it got shut down, one by the Southerners, but also like that's why that debate is like, is Thomas Jefferson a hypocrite?
He's
Which
very much a hypocrite.
He's
and-
very much a hypocrite, but at the same time, at that time, if that clause was put it in, like he wouldn't be considered a hypocrite at that time because that was what the societal expectation was. And I think it's also sickening because it's like you think about it, he had a mistress that was black, and because of that, as a direct result of that, he had multiple kids that were biracial that were listed as his slaves.
And I'm fairly certain there's still descendants of him that are still alive.
Really?
Yes, and they're
I'm
black.
very
They're
certain-
the
yes,
black
I'm very
descendants.
certain.
Really?
I mean, we had this discussion in AP Government on is.
I had that
is-
discussion
Yeah,
after
is
we
Thomas
studied
Jefferson a good or bad person?
Oh yeah,
And
I had that discussion at the beginning of the year.
yeah, I think everybody kind of had that discussion. I think it's a pretty popular
You
conversation.
have to have that
It's
discussion
the
have
once.
to have that
history. It's the
discussion.
history version of an
Absolutely.
icebreaker.
Yeah.
But I think now obviously Thomas Jefferson, slave owner, not in the slightest way a good thing. But at the same time, back then, like you said, he wasn't a hypocrite. It was following the social norms to have slaves. I mean, that was
Yeah.
totally normal. We look down and we frown upon it now, but that was totally normal. But we should really understand the context of what it was written back then. All men are created equal.
I
Like you
think-
said, shuts out black people, shuts down any other race, shuts down Native Americans. I mean, we had the Trail of Tears, like what, less than 100 years later,
Yeah.
forcing them out of their territories and moving them west, putting them in terrible reservations where women get raped every day, where they don't have clean water, where
And like they don't have
it's
to follow
unsafe.
the same exact laws we
No.
do.
Yeah.
So that stuff's kind of considered legal. Like, yeah, it's morally wrong, but like that stuff's kind of legal.
Yeah, and I'm really excited because in June I'm going on a service trip to Arizona to live on a Navajo reservation for a
Ooh,
few
So
weeks.
fun.
cool.
So I'm very excited for that because I've always kind of wanted to be on a reservation. My great grandmother was born there. We still have territory down in North Carolina. We have part of a reservation, but I've actually never been. But yeah, it's really interesting. But you kind of just have to look at the context of everything, of when things were written and who wrote them and what was the social norm back then. And unfortunately, the social norm was slavery, and
Yeah.
that's just how it is.
I think this is a good example that's adding context to the Declaration of Independence and all of these early U.S. history and who's good, who's bad, who's a hypocrite, or who's not, and now kind of paralleling it to modern day. I think Trent Horn shows it best is that we have in the abortion discussion, and we can trace it all the way back to all men are created equal. It's always all men plus blank. And it then gets back down to the core of all things, which is faith, holiness, God. If we don't have that core foundation, we are actively going to attempt to avoid it. And when we don't have it properly, with proper education and all the other things necessary, it's going to be that, yeah, all men minus black people. Yeah, it's all men minus Native Americans. Yeah, it's all men minus
people
unborn
of other
babies.
faiths.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people
all
of other faiths,
men
minus
other-
women, minus the babies that Planned Parenthood aborts every single year.
At some
So-
point, you think we'd notice this and realize, okay, maybe all men plus or minus blank probably doesn't work, and it should
No.
just be all men.
Yes, everyone's created equal, and you know, if
Exactly.
you look at it from a theology standpoint, I mean, God created everyone equal. I mean, everyone is a perfect image of what God wanted us to be. We were all created in God's image.
There's a reason
And-
we were called very good when created, not just
Exactly,
good.
exactly. I mean, God made us the way He intended us to be.
Yeah. If you look at
and-
Genesis, it even talks about that. Like Adam, like Eve was made from Adam, not for Adam.
Exactly.
It was so
good
he
switch.
had someone. Like, and also if you look at how Jesus treated, Jesus had women Jesus was Middle Eastern. He had people from different countries and areas who were different races.
Yeah.
Jesus never really like saw any of that as an issue. Like Jesus had a prostitute as one of his disciples.
Absolutely. Mary Magdalene, I mean, she's one of the most interesting characters in the Bible by far, in my opinion. She's so interesting.
And, like,
so when we as a society, or especially as a Catholic society, go and shame women for that, let's just remember we are supposed to be living like Jesus. Jesus didn't shame Mary Magdalene. He didn't make her feel less than.
He helped
You know,
her.
he helped her. He guided her. He was her spiritual advisor, and he bettered her. And that's really what, when we say Christian, let's remember that there's Christ in the world. We're supposed to be acting like Christ. We're supposed to be acting in Christ's image. So if we go and shame women for all this, or shame anyone that, you know, happens to be a prostitute, are we really being Christians? Are we living like Christ did? Are we doing what Christ would do if he were alive now? Not at all.
Like we're supposed to make heaven crowded. That's the goal of being Christian.
Absolutely.
Is to make heaven crowded.
Instead of saying, "Oh, you did this, you're gonna go to hell. You did this, you're gonna go to hell. You're gonna go to hell. Everyone's gonna go to hell." No. I mean, God knew when He created us that no one was gonna be perfect. I mean, He knows that, and He understands that it's human tendency to make mistakes and to have flaws and have vices and to sin. It's about, can you turn away from your sin and find God and try to better yourself in His image? That's what it's about. It's not about being perfect. It's about understanding that you have flaws and that you did something wrong, but making an effort to be better and to go and make the world a better place for everyone and make yourself better.
It's drawing the grace out of the trauma. And I think that's something that's been clearly evident throughout all our discussions, analogies,
Absolutely.
and stories.
Absolutely.
Now, we are getting the TikTok from our producer, John, who's helped us out so much. Is there anything else you guys want to quickly talk about or have something on your heart before we try to wrap this up?
I think it's interesting because, like, I know the whole number one enemy is Planned Parenthood and, like, racism, obviously. But, like, I think...
Obviously.
Obviously.
You guys wasn't sure. Racism is bad.
Always.
Yeah.
Always bad.
If we didn't
announcement,
say
guy.
that, racism is bad.
We solved it, guys.
Yes. This podcast just ended racism.
We
in
did.
America.
Amen.
Amen.
So, but, like, I think if you look at it, Margaret Sanger had ties to the KKK.
Yeah. Didn't she speak? She spoke at a KKK
She
rally,
spoke on
right?
multiple rallies. She was also a white Catholic Irish female.
And a
I'm
white
shocked
supremacist.
it's taking you so long to bring this up.
Yeah, and
You're
she was
always
a-
itching to bring it
and
up
she was-
every
I
talk.
love saying this.
And she was a white supremacist too.
Exactly.
so-
But, like, the thing is, the KKK hated immigrants, hated Catholics, hated Irish people. Like, if you
Hated black people too.
They hated black people, but if, like, you're trying to fill out an application
absolutely.
to
Where'd
join
you
the
get that
KKK.
theory
from?
Oh, I don't know. It's just a guess.
But, like, if you were filling out an application to, like, join the KKK,
Yeah.
like, and they will ask you questions like that. If you say you have Irish descent, if you say that you have, like, a Catholic family member or you grew up Catholic, they would reject you
Yeah.
and probably,
Yeah.
like, send you a little hate note.
Yeah. Do you have a lot of experience applying to the KKK? You seem to know
No,
a lot
I-
about.
I was wondering about this
Is
in
there
my
something you want to
application.
tell us?
Yeah,
Something you want to
yeah,
tell
I
us?
wrote about this in my
knowledge of it.
Yeah, you got
African
a lot
American
of-
Studies
yeah.
class, guys. Come on.
Yeah, that's what she says.
Racism is
but-
bad.
Racism is
Always.
bad.
I'll check your house to
PSA.
see if there's any
All right,
application
clip
forms.
that.
Clip that. No, yeah, you're right.
But, like, I think it's interesting to see, like, that was how the basis of Planned Parenthood started, was KKK ideology. And now, like, we're ending it, like, with what? Targeting black women now and then shaming people for trying to call them out for that?
Absolutely.
It's crazy.
That was a good way to circle it all the way back.
That was a really good full circle moment.
Yeah.
And
We started with Planned Parenthood
Ended with
and
Planned
eugenics. We
Parenthood.
ended with Planned Parenthood.
and eugenics.
And I think a good way to end it, as
Good
we
job,
end
Gina.
all
Thank you.
things, is to pray. Because that's the
Absolutely.
most important thing. We
Absolutely.
put our prayer into action, but we start with the prayer.
Absolutely.
Does anyone want to do it for us?
I'll
or
do
you
it
want me-
since I
Wait, I
started.
want to know.
Okay, then you can do it.
Which prayer should
Yeah.
we do? Our Father?
Yeah, do it all.
Okay,
Father.
okay. In the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. In the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
you.